Hi, everybody. Welcome. We started a bit early. We will be waiting 9 minutes until everybody shows up to start the webinar. So bear with us until 1 p.m. Toronto time. You have 9 minutes until we start. Welcome, everybody who just joined us. We will be starting our webinar in 8 minutes. So this is a good time for you to grab coffee, water, uh, do something else until it's 1 o'clock. You should be able to hear me now. Now, of course, you're all muted. We will be unmuting you if you'd like to be unmuted. If you have questions towards the end, please raise your hands and we'll unmute your mic from our end, and then you can unmute it from yours. So welcome to those who have joined us. We will be starting in approximately 7 minutes from now. You can take your time and wait until then. So again, welcome to those who are joining. We will be starting in 6 minutes from now. You should be able to hear me by now, but we did not yet start the webinar. This is a good time to be testing your speakers, and if you'd like for us to unmute your mic, please raise your hand and we will unmute your mic from our end. Yes, Allah. Okay, you've been unmuted from our end. You can unmute yourself from yours.
Hello, Mr. Waddah.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I am fine. Just I want to know if this classroom about changes of the CIE exam.
No, not really. Today we will be touching a little bit on the changes if you wish, but today we'll be talking about how to prepare, study, and pass the exam.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. But if you do have any questions about the changes, we'll be glad to answer them. In fact, what I'll do is I'll prepare the files with the changes as we speak, in case you'd like to have, in case you have any questions, I will be able to. Atik, we unmuted you from our end.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hello, yes. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, this is Atik speaking. I have just one a general question regarding the
Tell me.
CMA exam. Can you please explain that which one is the best material to study for the CMA exam?
CMA or CIA?
Oh, sorry, CIA.
CIA.
Yeah, yeah.
I think my opinion would be biased. We will be touching on that, but of course, I would definitely recommend our material.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really a matter of preference. There is a lot of good material out there. It's how you prefer to study and what you prefer to study. We have free trial. You can always try it. If you don't like it, you're not obliged to buy. But it's really a matter of preference. And normally when we're asked, especially if you compare to other providers in the market or other well-known providers in the market, well, we say the difference is just as it is the difference between a Mercedes, a BMW, and an Audi, which is better, which is nicer. It's really a matter of taste, preference, and how you'd like to study. We will be touching on that as we go through the webinar.
Okay, so just one more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Beside the study material for the PRC, I mean, is there is any other college books or the university books do we need to have to study for the CIA exam? Okay, I understand that the practical experience in the internal audit field will also give us a lot of help. But beside those practical experience and the study material, do we need to study also from our college books or from?
We will talk about that. We don't recommend that you do,
Mhm.
but we will talk about that also in the webinar.
Sure, sir. No problem.
Okay. Isam, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Waddah. How are
Yes,
you?
hello. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, good. For Mr. Atiq and all, inshallah, I am Isam Saidan. Alhamdulillah, I passed part 1 CIA.
Excellent.
And Alhamdulillah, and thanks God first. Then first for Mr. Waddah for all his advices, for his material, for BRC materials. I am really advise everyone, Mr. Atiq and all, to study BRC materials. As Mr. Waddah said before, his advice, I get all benefit from him. He told us that first you should read the material, don't escape the material. That's what we do. We read it first, and second, for me, for my trying, I read it 2 times. Then I solve the questions for BRC, and to be honest, also some questions for other schools. But for materials, I advise, as Mr. Waddah said before, for materials only for one source. So I advise Mr. Atiq and all, to be inshallah with the BRC. This is my that's what happened with me, inshallah. And inshallah, I hope for part 2 and 3, inshallah, to be in 2019. Thank you very much, Mr. Waddah.
Thank you, Isam, for joining. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on the part 1. Hopefully, you will see the part 2 and part 3 soon. Okay, we will be starting. I'll take questions later on back. Your question about where to get the materials from the website, you can order it. And Mariam, my French is rusty. So I'll see if my colleague Mandy is online, if she's able to answer it. Si j'ai bien compris la classe virtuelle porte le 7+ que Okay, Mariam, I'm sorry, I can't. I'll see if one of my colleagues online, who's probably better than me in French, is able to answer that question. Mandy, are you with us? Mandy? Okay, so Mandy will be joining us soon. She will be able to answer your question in French, Mariam. So it is 1 o'clock here in Toronto. Welcome to our webinar today. So I will be muting everybody, and we will, if you have any questions, once we open it up for questions, you'll be able to answer. I'll also be lowering your hands back and Allah. You can raise them up once you want to have, once we get to the questions and answers session. So again, thank you for joining this webinar. Today, what we're going to talk about is how to prepare for and pass the CIA exam. And we're going to talk about the 7 pillars to passing the CIA exam. I'm sure everybody who's joined today, that's what they're interested in doing, and that's what they want to do. So with this, we will start. And the first pillar to passing the CIA exam is to want it. And what do we mean by wanting it? I want to be on the beach right now. I want to do this and this. I want to travel to the moon. Okay, so wanting is something, but really wanting is something else. Now, of course, for getting any one of these professional qualifications, the golden rule and rule number 1 is to say, I want that. And not just to say it, because preparing for these professional qualifications requires a lot of time, effort, commitment, and a financial investment, and of course, a time investment. To put all these factors in, you really have to want it. Because once you want something, my opinion is that you're halfway there. Wanting it is halfway to getting to it. So your first rule to pass the CIA exam is to say, I want it, and to work hard towards getting it. Just saying, okay, I want it, but it's my least priority, will not really help. And we're going to see why in a few slides. Now, the second pillar, of course, to passing the exam is to know thy challenge. You're approaching a very difficult qualification, a difficult exam, a time utilizing exam. So the second rule is to know what you're jumping in for. And knowing the exam for the CIA is a 3-part exam. Of course, the exam recently changed. It changed for the English CIA starting January 2019. And as you know, the exam is offered in multiple other languages. Other languages are rolled on a continuous basis throughout 2019. Depends on your language. I don't know all the languages, but for the English exam, the changes are effective January 1st, 2019. And the exam is made up of 3 parts. Part 1 is the essentials of internal auditing. And it's a 2.5-hour exam, 125 multiple choice questions. Part 2 is the practice of internal auditing, and it's a 100 multiple choice questions in 2 hours. And part 3 is a business knowledge for internal auditing, and that's a 2 hours exam, 100 multiple choice questions. Now, why is part 1 slightly longer and has more questions in it? And the reason is you have 25 practice questions on part 1, tested in part 1. And these questions you will not know. These are test questions that are not graded and will not count towards your future score. And the reason is for examiners to know, to assess the validity, difficulty, and to test their new questions. They integrate them with live real questions in part 1, and they measure them statistically to see how difficult or how easy a question is or a topic is. So 25 of your 125 questions for part 1 are test questions, they will not be graded. Now, of course, we have a theory to know which ones they are, but then, of course, the IA does not announce it. My theory is when you see multiple questions on the same topic, that's way beyond what you expect for part one. So for example, let's say we expect 5 to 10% questions on ethics in part one. If you see 35% questions on ethics, most likely these are where your test questions are. Sometimes you see topics that are totally irrelevant to part one. And again, these are sometimes where the test questions are. So don't be surprised if you suddenly, if you expect a few questions on an exam, on a topic on the exam, and you suddenly see a big number of questions on that topic, or know that these are where the test questions are. Now, of course, the exam is graded on a scaled score, and the scale is, just one moment, please. Okay, so the test, the scale is on a scale of 250 to 750, and what that means is that two people who go into the exam, of course, you need 600 to pass. What this means is that sometimes you could get 68% correct on your exam and earn 600. Other times, or other versions of the exam, you might get 70% correct and earn 600. So the 600 scaled score does not translate as 600 out of 750. 600 scaled score is one of the statistical measures to normalize exams for different versions or different candidates. So sometimes you might get a lower percentage and get a 600. Sometimes you may need a higher percentage to get a 600. Generally speaking, though, 70% and higher would be a passing grade on the exam. So if you get more than 70%, you would likely pass the exam. You would likely earn the 600. Now, third pillar is the material. Where should you study from? Now, of course, when we talk about exam material or exam prep material for the CIA exam, you have multiple options to study. Your first option might be university books, as I believe it was Atik who raised the question. You could go back to your university books, and on the IIA syllabus page, you will find all the references that you can go back to prepare for in a particular part on the exam. Now, of course, that's not a method we recommend, and the reason is there are just a lot of books out there. There's a long list of references that you will need to go back to, but you can technically prepare for the CIA exam using the university books or literature books out there. Now, the second option you could opt for is review materials. And that's what we're good at. That's what we're known for. We prepare excellent review material for the CIA exam. And what we've done is we've combined all these literature books based on the topics and the likely questions and the likely material to be covered on the exam, and we narrowed them down into review material. So review books are the most common preparation method out there for people who would like to review material. So it's books and multiple choice questions for those who'd like to prepare for the exam. Your third option would be a live class, and that would either be that would technically be attending a live class in your city or in your area. I'm sure a lot of centers, universities do offer live courses. And our feature program is an online review where we offer a live online, just as we're talking right now. We'd be explaining, you'd be seeing the instructor, interacting with the instructor, seeing the presentation on the screen, and preparing for your exam. So there are multiple options for you to prepare for the exam. Of course, as a director with PRC, I would always recommend our material to prepare for the exam. We have a comprehensive full package that will help you prepare. You have the books and the online component. The books are also available in e-format for the 2019 edition, so you could have them e-book, study them on the go. And or you have the online platform, which includes the multiple choice questions and the mock exams and to be introduced soon would be the e-flashcards. We had them for the previous edition. We did not yet introduce them for the 2019 edition. They will be introduced shortly. And you have approximately 3,500 questions to prepare from for your three-part exam. Now, plan. This is our fourth pillar for today, is to plan your exam, plan your study. Your starting point for planning would be to set an exam target date. This is setting it is individually. It's an individual aspect. Some people are in a rush. They want to earn their CIA as soon as possible. They have deadlines, they have work pressures, whatever. Others might set a more relaxed deadline. But my advice is that you start by setting a deadline for yourselves. Say, I want to get the exam. I want to pass all exams before end of 2019. Now, is it reasonable? Yes. From now until 2019, passing all three parts of the exam is a reasonable deadline for yourselves. Saying, I want to pass all the exams in the next month, unless you've been preparing for a while, I would recommend you set a more reasonable target. And or saying, I want to sit for the exam in 3 years from now, I don't recommend that approach. This is a professional qualification. Do it right, do it once, and you'll earn it. Don't let it drag. It's not a PhD, it's not an MBA. If you put your mind into it, I am sure that each and every one of you will be able to complete the exam before year's end. Now, the next question we always get asked is how many study hours or how many hours do I need to put in to pass the exam? Now, of course, this is also a very individual question. It will depend on each person's background, knowledge, means of studying, amount of time that it takes them to understand concepts. But generally speaking, I would approximate this to be 500 to 600 hours of studying for all three parts of the exam. Now, I've heard people who managed to do it with 200, 300 hours. I know people who took them 800, 900 hours of studying, but my recommendation is, or my 80% or 70% of the people spend around 500 to 600 hours preparation. How does that translate? I don't recommend that you put the 500, 600 hours into 2 or 3 months. I do always recommend that you take your time. Education, memory, learning takes time. So it's like, I always say, it's like driving a car. You could put somebody in the car and tell them the ABCs of driving, which is how to turn the wheel, how to give a signal, how to change gears, etc., pedals, etc. However, as we all know, driving takes time, takes practice. And it's not putting 10 hours in the same day. It's putting half an hour or 1 hour every day or every few days until you master the skill of driving. So when we talk about studying, preparing for the CIA, unless you're really pressured, my personal recommendation is to have a 20 hours per week study plan. And again, can you translate that to daily? Not always. Some people work, some people have other other family pressure, social pressure, etc. You need to manage your time, and my recommendation is a 20-hour per week. Sometimes over the weekend you could do maybe 5-6 hours a day, but during the week you can only do 2 hours a day or 1 hour some days and 3 hours on other days. Depends on the topic, depends on your day, depends on the time of the week. So but in general, on average, you would translate that to 20 weeks. So if we divide the 600 by the 20 weeks, that gives us a total of 30-week preparation period. And that's approximately, and that's approximately 6-7 months of preparation. That's really a reasonable time to prepare. Now, I'm sorry for the chat questions. I will be answering them all later. Mohammed, I will be answering your question with the other question. And Mandy, if you're with us, we do have a question in French. if you're able to help there. Mandy, are you with us? Okay.
Okay, sorry. I'll do it.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Thanks, no problem.
Okay, so as we said, it's a 20-hour per week. Now, how do you manage these hours? I'd like to steal hours during the week. And what do I mean by steal? Every minute or every 5 minutes you do counts towards these 20 hours per week. You might not be able to sit and find a whole 2 or 3 hour stretch. In fact, I don't personally recommend a 2-3 hour study stretch. I recommend shorter study periods over a longer period of time or during the day. I don't recommend you sit for 5 or 6 hours continuous. I'd recommend you do half an hour or 1 hour, take a break, rest, do something else, and come back and do another 1 hour. Now, some people, their prime time is early morning. That's the time where they're fresh, they're studying, everybody else is asleep, they didn't go to work yet, they might wake up a bit early and study. Other people, it's late at night after everybody's gone to sleep. They might switch off their phones and prepare for like study, do an hour or two. Some people manage over the weekend, some people during the day, etc. But my personal recommendation, this is what online study tools help you with, and this is one of the features, of course, of our software and a lot of the software out there, is that you can manage and customize short study sessions. So during the day at work, you have a 5-minute or a 10-minute coffee break. Get a coffee, grab a coffee, and instead of just walking out in the corridors, sit behind your desk and do 10 questions, do 5 questions, do as many as you can within a very short period. These 5-minute counts. So if you do 5 minutes every hour during the day, you have an 8-hour day or a 9-hour work day. You can manage to squeeze 1 hour of study time every day during your day, and this would be during your breaks, during your work breaks. Sometimes you're on the subway, sometimes you're on a plane. You could do a few hours there, and that's how you can manage to steal maybe 5-6 hours during the week. And then the remaining hours you will need to commit other times outside your normal chores. But they do count. So you don't have to do long stretches. Every minute, every 5 minutes counts. Preparation. How do you recommend that you prepare? Now, of course, the way we recommend that you prepare, and assuming you are using review books, is to read the books once. Now, some people tell us, do we need to read the books? Yes, my recommendation is you do need to read the books. I've been certified for a long time. I've been teaching the CIA for a long time. My opinion is that if I have to do the exam again, I still have to read the books. So I would read the book once at least, maybe focus on areas that I'm weak at or I'm answering incorrectly. And next, I would move to practicing the questions. Now, our material and some other materials out there, they're divided into small study sessions. And the best way to study is to study or to read a short session from the book and immediately solve the questions on that particular session. The questions reinforce the material. In fact, the questions and the books, they complement each other. Solving questions by themselves will not help you much. Reading the books by themselves will not help you much. Doing both at the same time, this is what will optimize and reinforce the learning topics, the learning concepts, the approach to how the IIA would like you to answer certain questions. Now, the next step is to reattempt any questions you're answering incorrectly. Sometimes, or not sometimes, you should not study all topics equally. You should not give all topics equal weight. Now, you'd study them all, you would not focus on particular topics, but then the second time when you want to emphasize, do not reread everything from the beginning, and you don't have to solve all the questions from the beginning. What you really have to focus on are questions you solve incorrectly the first time. And the reason is, if you solve a question correctly the first time, chances are you will solve it correctly the second, third, and fourth time you see it. What you know, you know. What's our problem? Our problems are usually with the questions we do not No. So if we answer a question incorrectly the first time, chances are if we see the same question on the exam, we might still answer it incorrectly. So these are the questions you will really need to focus on. And when I say focus on, I don't mean to do it immediately. You solve a question, you solve it incorrectly, read the explanation. Our questions do have explanations why each question is answered incorrectly. So if you chose option C, why is C is incorrect? Because it will give you to justify the reason, and it will justify the reason why the answer is something else. Sleep on it, give it time, and then reapproach it at least in a few days, at least in 3 or 4 days. I prefer a week or 10 days, because what happens is some people, you would answer a question incorrectly this morning. In the afternoon, you reattempt the same question. You might memorize the answer why it's correct, but it's not necessary that you have understood the concept, the principle why it's correct. And these questions should really guide you towards concepts and learning habits and learning experiences, not necessarily because you will never see the same question on the exam. So the best way to do it is to give it time, to sleep on it, to allow it a week or 10 days before reattempting the question again and solving it again. So when you're short on time, focus on questions that you are solving incorrectly. Then you might want to do a final review a few days before your exam. Of course, if you can afford that, do attempt to take a few days, 2 to 3 days at least, off before each one of your exams. This will significantly improve your chances of passing. So if you're able to do 2 or 3 days or 4 days, as long as you can do before each part, I would recommend that you do it. And then you move on to the mock exam, where you also have it on our online platform where you can practice 100 questions in real exam timing, real exam setting, and you will score towards the end. It will give you your score whether you passed or you failed, and you can know how prepared you are. My experience is that those who prepare read correctly. When you're solving questions, if you're solving more than 50 or 60% correct on your first attempt, you're doing good. But future attempts, you need to be scoring at least 90 or 95% on these mock exams and these preparation questions in order for you to have a good chance of passing the real exam. Now, the 90 or 95%, for that to be a good measure, you should have allowed yourself sufficient time to forget the questions, so not repetitive attempts. You should have left a week or 10 days between attempts, and that will allow these questions to be a good measure of your understanding of the relevant and related concepts. Now, study approach, as we touched on some points, I would rest and reward. Don't just go to your books and stay 5-6 hours continuously behind your books. Study, solve some questions, and rest. Reward yourself. Go out, watch a movie, talk to some friends, go on social media, do whatever you want, as long as don't pressure yourself too much. My personal recommendation is also short study sessions. 30 minutes to 1 hour is a reasonable time for a study session. Anything beyond that, I doubt you'll be able to focus. It's better to do 30 minutes or 1 hour of condensed absorption of material rather than just sit there and daydream and your mind is somewhere else, or you're tired and you're not focusing. If you're not focusing, don't study. Let it for some time when you're able to focus. Or if it's a difficult topic, don't let it drag you down. Just read it once and leave it. Sleep on it. Do another attempt 1 week later, and then you'll understand it. If you read the same topic twice or 3 times in the same sitting, you will probably not understand it. But if you read it once, even if you're not understanding it, leave it, sleep on it, come back to it a week or 10 days later, your mind will understand it. This is how our brains work. This is how we learn. Now, all topics are equally important. And of course, each topic will have a certain percentage on the exam. And so you cannot ignore sections. We've already ignored what you can afford to ignore because as we said, we narrowed down your literature books to review books. You cannot ignore a single page from these review books. The next point, staying, of course, focusing on your weaknesses. We touched on that. Don't focus on your areas of strength. So if I'm doing, let's say, part 3 and I'm solving good on financial accounting, I don't have to redo it or restudy it. Focus on the areas where you're not scoring high at. You remember, you need to bring out all the grades or all the parts together, because even if you master one area, the maximum you could get on that area are 10 or 15 or 20%. You would still need to master all the other areas. Point number 5, very important, stay positive. You can do it. Don't listen to others. Don't let others bring you down. Don't let others affect your mood. If I did it, and you can, I'm sure, look around you. If other people around you did it, I'm sure you can do it. All you have to do is just stay positive and avoid the negative peers. Now, of course, you'll hear cases of other people who attempted it once, twice, 3 times, and they still could not pass it. Don't let that affect you. So, people are different. People think differently, prepare differently, study differently. But I'm sure, I have confidence that each and every one of you listening to us now can pass this exam. And the reason is you all finished your university degrees. This is no difficult or no more difficult than university degree. And if you manage to go through 3 or 4 years of university, I am confident that you will be able to pass the exam. You just have to put the right investment. And when we say the right investment, this is how it works. Each and every one of us had 24 hours during our day, right? Now, if we are going to add 20 hours a week to our days, and I'm sure these 24 hours, they have been full, right? I'm sure each and every one of you don't have like an hour or two where you just sit there, stare at the ceiling. You watch TV, you talk to friends, you go out, you go shopping, you go with family. Each and every one of us has their 24 hours booked for various tasks. Now, if you're going to add 20 hours a week to your busy schedule, to your already full schedule, you need to change your priorities. Something has to come out. Some people take their sleep out. Some people take their work out. Some people take their family out. Some people take their leisure time out. Something has to come out of your schedule. Or the second option is to try and do a 30-hour workday instead of 24 hours. But if you manage to do the 30 hours, please let me know. It'll help us. I know there's only one way to do it. If we go to Mars, probably our days will be longer, but otherwise we will still need to squeeze our study into our 24-hour workday, and we can only do that by reprioritizing our tasks. And personally, I would strongly advise you, if you decide with pillar number 1 that I want it, put that as our priority. Do the investment, do it once, do it right. Don't let it drag. You can do it 6 to 8 months. It'll be out of your way and you'll become certified. And it's an investment that will repay you until the end of your careers. Now, pillar number 6 is to review and rest and prepare for the CIA exam. So before the exam, have a good night's sleep, rest, and go towards the exam. Now, we've done all the studying, we've done all the preparation, we are ready for the exam. Now we go into the exam. And the exam, as we said, is 2.5 hours for part 1, 2 hours each for parts 2 and 3. And when you get to the exam, and of course this is the last topic we'll be talking about, then we'll be opening the floor for questions and answers. When you get to the exam, my first recommendation is to do the multiple pass approach. And what I mean by the multiple pass approach is this. You look at the first question. And the first question that comes to you is one of these long questions. And I'm sure when you practice for the exam, you will start knowing or realizing when it's a long question or it's a difficult question. So you look at a question, just looking at it without even reading a single word or just scanning for a single word, less than 5 seconds, less than 2 seconds, I'd say. If you find it long and or difficult, or it looks difficult, just go next. Don't attempt it. Don't read it. Ignore it. Go next. Second question is one of these long and or difficult questions. Again, don't read it. Go next. Keep going next until you find one of these short, easy questions, one of these one-line questions. When you find one of these questions, attempt it. Go next. So you would do the first pass, beginning to end of exam, or the end of the 125 or end of 100 questions, having solved only or having attempted only the short and or easy questions first. Now, you would, by the end of this, you would probably have solved 40 to 50 questions. And mind you, a long question, which might take us 2 or 3 minutes to solve, will have the same grading as a short question, which can be solved in 20 to 30 seconds. So why spend 2 minutes on one question when I can spend that on 4 short questions first? So what I do is I go to the end and I will have 4 options at the end. First option, see all questions again. Second option, see unanswered questions. Third option would be see marked questions. And fourth option would be end exam. Let's postpone ending the exam for now and focusing on the second option, which is seeing all the unanswered questions. Now you start from the beginning and it will show you, it will display only the questions that you did not answer. Now, when you do that, again, don't reattempt the difficult or long questions. Skip them. Get the longer and or more difficult questions from the ones you solve through the end. Personally, when I do this exam, I go beginning to end 5 or 6 times. Each time solving the longer and more difficult questions. And I like to picture that as if picking apples from a tree. Now, when you pick apples from a tree, it might take you, it'll be easy to take the low, easy apples first. And then that high apple up there that might need a ladder and might need time to go up and try to grab it, leave that till the end. Now, if you do have time at the end, fine, attempt them, solve them, whatever. If you do not, at least you did not waste time on these long questions. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. Of course, the examiners don't like me when I do talk about that. In one of my exams, it used to be 110 questions. When I applied this approach, I solved 70 to 80 questions on each of the 3 parts out of the 110. And the remaining 20 or 30, they were these long, difficult questions. I did not even bother. I just put them all in one letter and I ended my exam. And guess what? I passed all 3 exams, all 3 parts using this technique. The way it works is the short, easy questions. These are the ones we know. These are the ones that we can answer quickly. You gain your score. You gain your points from these easy questions. And then if you do have time, you would attempt the longer questions. If you don't have time, at least you'd have guaranteed a big chunk of your grade from the shorter and or easier questions. Now imagine the other scenario where you would start to, with these long, difficult questions, let's assume that the first 10 questions of your exam are the ones that need on average 2 or 3 minutes each, and you start with them. 20 or 30 minutes later, you would realize that you're 25% during the exam, but you've only solved 10 or 15 questions. What will happen to you? You will panic, you will get frustrated, you will no longer focus, and you will go through the remainder of the exam stressed and probably not focusing properly on the remaining questions, and that will cause you to fail. However, if these questions, once you've solved all the easy questions, you have 10 questions left with half an hour towards the end of the exam, then you have all the time in the world to spend it on these 10, 15 difficult questions. So the multiple pass approach does work, but I'm going to give you a caveat. For this approach to work, do not read questions and then skip them. If you do read a question, solve it. So if you end up going through the first few sentences of a question, don't just say, oh, this looks difficult, I'm going to skip it. Once you spend time, more than 2 to 3 seconds on a question, solve it. Now, if you're not sure of the answer, you can mark it. You have an option to mark the question, and you can come back to it later if you do have time. But if you do start reading the question, solve it and then move on. Now, again, my personal advice is go through the passes as many as you want. Now, read the second technique. Read all options. So sometimes you read the question and then you say option 1 and you feel, oh, option 1 is correct. You circle it and you move on, or you click it nowadays. You click it and you move on. Don't do that. Read options A, options B, options C, and options D. Why? 2 reasons. One is there might be a word in the question stating all of the following are true except. So you might have missed the word except. Or which of the following is the word not? And if that happens, you read option 1 and it's true, you'd circle it and move on. Well, that's wrong, because that's true. You're looking for the negative. The second reason, especially on the CIA questions, which of the following is the best approach? Now, sometimes there are 2 acceptable approaches, but one is better than the other. That's why reading all options will guide you towards the right answer. So, second rule, read all options. And notice how we've emphasized all with multiple L's here. Third, emphasize keywords such as not, except, least, most. So these are keywords. You have to emphasize them. Of course, when we had the paper-based exams, we used to tell candidates underscore these words when you're reading them. Nowadays, you have to just mentally focus on these words because you're reading these on the screen. So mentally focus on not, except, least, most, etc. Technique number 4, duplicates are wrong. What do we mean by duplicates are wrong? Sometimes you get 2 answers that are the same, and most likely they are wrong. And generally, when you have 2 answers that are opposites, one of them is the one that's correct. So I'll give you an example. And of course, when we say unearned revenues, and these are deposits made by our customers for services that we have not yet performed, we record these as an unearned revenues. So the question is, unearned revenues are a current asset, an asset, a liability, or an equity. Okay, so I'm not sure. I'm new to accounting. I'm not an accountant. Let's see. An asset or a current asset or an asset. Now, a current asset is also an asset. So both cannot be correct, and an asset can be a current asset. So both of these are, in one way or the other, they're duplicates. Eliminate both of them. Then your choice is, even if you're guessing between a liability and an equity. And of course, in this case, it is a liability account. But let's assume we don't know, at least we're guessing at a 50% success rates. Now, fifth technique or fifth point, answer all questions. Now, some exams, they penalize you for questions answered incorrectly. The CIA does not. So answer all questions. And if you don't know, guess what? Guess. So if I don't know the answer, don't leave any question unanswered. Guess it. Now, next point, do not change your answers. And I'll give this to you in 2 ways. One, statistics. 90% of us, in 90% of the times, we change from a correct answer to incorrect answer. That's what most of us do. It's very rare that we do change from an incorrect answer to a correct answer. So unless you're absolutely sure, unless you're 100% sure that you chose the wrong answer, stay with your first choice. Do not change answers. And my personal experience, some of you may have heard this before, but this is true story. And I hope we don't have any of our professors or my university professors online. So back in college, I used to help. I used to be famous. People used to sit around me and copy my paper. And in one of the exams, I solved it. It was multiple choice, and I just hung there. So a couple of my friends copied it, and one of them submitted his paper and left. After this person left, I changed a few answers. Another person copied it and left. After the second person left, I changed a few other answers. So guess what? The first guy got 98, the second guy got 92, I got 88. And that's where I learned the hard lesson. Do not change your answers. And from that day on, of course, I never changed my answers when I put them. Now, on the final rule for the exam, stay positive. Don't let a few difficult questions take you down. Don't let them affect your mood. Don't let them affect your attitude. You will definitely see some topics you've never heard of. You will definitely see some questions that you might find extremely difficult or challenging, or and some of them, they might not make sense. Is that a possibility? Yes, it is. But just remember, this is an exam. The same question has been offered to everybody. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't heard of it, chances are nobody has. And some of these questions might be test questions or extremely difficult questions. And when it's an extremely difficult question, it will be weighed out because you might need a lower percent. If your edition of the exam is more difficult than others, you might need a less correct percentage to get the 600. So don't let that take you down. And the last technique before we open up for questions and answers, we're going to give you a 2-minute break, or 3-minute. Let's do a 3-minute break. And after that, we will cover the solving by elimination approach. And then we will leave it for your questions and answers. So 3 minutes break, and we will resume after that. I would like you to be focused for the next topic that we're going to cover. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was answering questions, and thank you for letting me know, Basil, that you couldn't hear me. Yes, Halima, also, thank you for letting me know. So, Mandy, did you get the chance to answer the French question?
Hi, sorry. I'm not seeing the questions come up. I only have the chat. That's why.
Yeah, in the chat.
It's in the chat. I don't have it, unfortunately.
Okay.
I don't have it, but if you want to unmute, I can try and answer it at the end.
Okay. I'll unmute Mariam, and she can answer. Okay, Mariam, I'm going to unmute you. If you'd like, you can answer the question. You can ask the question to Mandy. She'll be able, in French, and she'll be able to answer it.
Bonjour, Mariam.
Okay, maybe she's on the break. We'll answer it towards the end.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so let's move on to the solving by elimination. solving by elimination. And this is a very important technique, especially for parts 1 and 2 of the CIA. And the reason is you get 20 to 30 questions of these on your parts 1 and 2. And the technique I'm going to teach you now will allow you most of the times to answer these questions while only reading 2 of the options, not all 4 options. Now, I'm going to go slowly on this method and on this technique because this is, as I said, one of the important techniques for the exam. So, when we start reading these questions, before reading the question and reading the 4 alternatives, we jump straight to these 4 options at the bottom here. So we want to see how many 1s do we have, how many 2s do we have, how many 3s do we have, and how many 4s do we have. In this case, we have 3 1s, here, here, and here. We have 3 2s, here, here, and here. We have 2 3s, B and C, and we have 2 4s, C and D. Now, our starting point would be to read how many times each option was repeated. In this case, 1 was repeated 3 times, 2 was repeated 3 times, 3 was repeated twice, and 4 was repeated twice. We choose the one that's repeated twice. Why? We will see why in the next moment. So we will choose either 3 or 4. Let's randomly choose 3. Now we go back and read the question. Which of the following is a number? I don't have to read 1, 2, and 4. I just have to read number 3. Is 3 a number? No, 3 is not a number. 3 is a letter. So we can eliminate option B and option C because both of them have the number 3 in them. So now we are choosing between option A and option D. Now option A has 1 and 2. Option D has 1, 2, and 4. So now options 1 and 2, we don't have to read them because they are correct. We know that they are numbers now. So we only have to read option 4. Is 4 a number? The answer is yes. So it would be D. So notice we only had to read 2 options. And we were able to answer that question. Now, of course, this is an easy question. We're going to see a more difficult question on the following slide. But let's reattempt this using 4 this time. So as we said, we start with the numbers. 1 was repeated 3 times, 2 was repeated 3 times, 3 was repeated twice, 4 was repeated twice. This time we're going to start with number 4. So which of the following is the number? Number 4 is a number. So the answer has to be C or D because 4 is only repeated there. So A and B are out. Now, what's common between C and D? Nothing is common, but they're all different. So now I have 1, 2, or 3 are the different. All I have to do is read any one of the other ones. So I'll read 1. 1 is a number. The answer is D. So notice when you use this approach, you only have to read 2 options and you'll be able to answer. Now, why is this method significant? Now, of course, these numbers are short. On the exam, these might be small paragraphs. Each one of these might be 1 or 2 lines. So instead of thinking about them, reading all 4 of them and thinking about them, all you have to do is read 2 of them most of the times, and you'll be able to get to the right answer without having to read. So if you save 10 seconds per option, 20 seconds per question, and you get 20 or 30 questions of this type, you are technically saving at least 10 to 15 minutes of time, of valuable exam time, using this technique. Let's see it in another more difficult question. Which of the following equals 100? I'm not going to go solve all these problems. The easier way to do it is say 1, repeat it 3 times, 2, repeat it 3 times, 3, repeat it twice, 4, repeat it twice. I look at 4, 4 is shorter than 3, it only has 3 numbers in it. So let's do number 4. 9 and 9 is 18 and 3 is 21. So I know the first digit has a 1. I no longer need to continue. 4 is wrong. So the answer cannot be C and it cannot be D. Now, we are choosing between A and B. Common between A and B are 1 and 2. So I know without doing the math here that 1 and 2 are equal to 100. All I have to do is solve for 3. If 3 is correct, the answer is B. If 3 is incorrect, the answer is A. So 3, 0, 2, 4, and 6, that's 12. So 12 is definitely not going to equal 100 because now we have 2 on the first digit. So the answer is A. So you can solve these questions very quickly by applying this technique. Moving on, work backwards. Some of the questions, you don't have to solve them the right way. You can go solve from the answers up. Now, of course, we're not going to solve this question. This is linear programming. It's slightly more difficult than you need to know. But when you have a long question, so what quantities of products X, Y, and Y should the company produce to maximize revenues? We know this is a linear programming formula. Work backwards. Build the formula, plug in these numbers in the formula, and go back and see which one has the highest revenues. Now, again, remember, when you have a long question, always start with the last statement because sometimes you will have a long introduction. Canada is the second largest country in the world. It's north of the United States of America. On the east is the Atlantic Ocean. West is the Pacific Ocean, made up of 10 provinces and 3 territories. And then they'd ask you a question, what's the capital of Canada? Now, of course, all this introduction is useless. So whenever you get these long questions, start with the last statement, because when you read the last statement, you know what you're looking for once you go read the givens. Now, we will open up the floor for questions and answers, and I will start answering the questions on the chat. Is it possible to start? Halima, we cannot do that, unfortunately. Study groups, if you are part of our PRC, we do have a study group for our candidates. You're welcome to join. If you'd like to ask questions by voice, you can just raise your hand and we'll unmute your mic. Okay, Mariam, we unmuted your mic from our end. You can ask your question in French. Mandy will take care of it.
Oui.
Oui, bonjour, Mariam.
Bonjour, madame.
Oui?
Oui, j'ai bien compris l'explication parce que son anglais, je comprends un peu, mais je n'arrive pas à parler.
OK.
Mais seulement, c'est la dernière partie où je n'ai pas bien compris. La dernière partie, solving pour élimination, là, c'est là où je n'ai pas bien compris.
OK. En bref, qu'est-ce qu'il a dit, c'est que en regardant, mettons, si le AB, on va dire c'est ABCD,
Oui.
si c'est juste la manière qu'il l'explique, c'est de dire que si A est sur 3 des bonnes réponses déjà indiquées, on sait que A, c'est probablement une des réponses. Fait qu'on peut l'enlever, on n'est pas obligé, on est obligé de faire les calculations sur ceux qui sont différents.
D'accord, OK.
C'est juste une méthode de prendre les questions un petit peu plus vite, c'est rien que ça.
D'accord. Sinon, j'ai bien compris tout ce qu'il a expliqué, j'ai bien compris.
Parfait. Je vous remercie.
Okay. Merci. D'accord.
Sorry, Wada, it was just a question on your solving method, yeah.
Sure. So, okay, now I'm going to go in order with the questions. Oh, Mitesh, you can go ahead. We unmuted you. And next will be Atik. I'll unmute you from now. So, Mitesh, go ahead. Atik, you can go ahead until Mitesh manages his microphone. Mitesh Joshi. Okay, I'll go ahead and answer the questions in the chat. So back Akram, he's asked where to get PRC material for CIA. You can get them on our website, or you can get them from any of our distributors in your local city. You can find our distributors online also in the partners area. Mohammed Iktidar, you asked the first question, what about IIA study pack? That most of the questions are included from that study pack. All the questions released by the IIA exam, by the examiners, have already been integrated and included in our previous exam questions or in our practice questions. So you have them all there. Khaled, you asked when do the courses start for the online? We will start them in March. My colleague Wael will send you a schedule offline. You are offline now. Okay, Melissa, this was so helpful. How does the new exam differ from the old? I keep getting 541. Melissa, if you hang on, once I do a few questions, I will go over the changes of the exam and we can help you there. Ramanuj Venkatesh, just want to ask, is there any exemption for CPA? No, not anymore. Mohammed, the 3,500 questions are more than enough to prepare for the exam. We believe they are well enough, they're good enough if you really understand them. You will never probably, it's unlikely that you're going to see any single one of them on your exam, but if it's the technique that matters, it's how you think about these questions. So yes, I believe 3,500 questions are enough. Now, of course, Islam at the beginning said that you can study from multiple sources. I would advise it only if you spent all the time, you finished everything. You might want to check other sources, but know this, the difference between any provider in excess of 2,000 or 3,000 questions is just a few questions. So you will get 80% of the questions are the exact same because they're all previously disclosed IIA exam questions. Mitesh, you are unmuted. Okay, you're unmuted. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Why should we do this? What kind of job you get after this?
After the CIA?
Yeah.
This is for practicing to become an internal auditor, and internal auditors are in audit departments across all the large organizations, banks, insurance companies, etc. It's an international designation. In fact, it's the most accredited and renowned international designation for internal auditors around the world.
I see. But I don't know, I'm going to CPA, so.
Well, they're two different things. It's like saying, is it better to be a surgeon or a dentist? They're two different things, right? CPA is for public accountancy, CIA is for internal auditors.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Halima, I've unmuted you. You can go ahead and ask your question. Okay, so 2 hours seem a long session to focus. Vak Ibrahim, do you mean for the exam? I agree, but this is how the exams work. When I did my CPA exam, we had 16 hours of exam in 2 days. So, bear with us. What does the PRC material tend to be much shorter than the other CIA materials? I can tell you that our material is straight to the point. It's focused. We don't give you a lot of anything that you don't need to know for the exam. What's there is what you need to know, and some people like that. Other people prefer material that just keeps on going on and on and on and on the same topic. That's a matter of personal preference, but I know that our material work, it gives you the most amount of information and the least amount of words. So it just gets you straight to the point. That's what people like about our material. Any suggestions or comments for persons coming from through the ACCA membership route? Vimila, I'm not sure what that question is. If you can raise your hand, I'll unmute you and you can ask the question. To what sequence do we start CIA exam? Do we need to start with the part 1, then part 2, and last part 3? Atik, thank you very much for raising this question. I forgot to mention it. You can do the exam parts in any order. You don't have any particular order. You could start with part 3 and then move on to parts 1. My personal recommendation, study parts 1 and 2 separately or together. Attempt one of them, review the second, attempt it, and then once you pass these, go on to part 3. The body of knowledge in the new exam is better divided, but there might still be minor areas of overlap. So I do strongly recommend that you study parts 1 and 2. They're also small parts together, and then you'll be able to manage it. So Mohammed, you asked about the Arabic material. Yes, I do happen to know the exam changes will be in August. The PRC material will be available early April. Does the class very helpful? Do you have the questionnaire session is only option for us to purchase? Have training materials around? Yeah. So Robin, you have two options. So Robin is asking, the class was very helpful. Do you have the questionnaire sessions only option for us to purchase? I have training materials from other vendors. Buying more will become a financial burden. So that's why I'm asking. So you have two options there. Option one is yes, we do sell the online component separately. You can find the pricing and the method from the website. And two, we do have an option called Switch. So on our homepage, if you've already purchased somebody else's material and you're not happy with that and you'd like to shift or switch to PRC, go onto our website, click on the switch. There's just you communicate with our customer service, provide proof of purchase from other vendors, and you can buy our material at significantly reduced prices. Does the CPA, CIA really make me more marketable in the internal audit field? Definitely. In fact, for internal audit, a CIA would make you more marketable than a CPA because you would have gone through the standards. People tell me which is more important, which has more information. Personally, I tell you I did both, and I learned from both, and they're two different things. Halima, you can go ahead and ask your question.
My question was, I purchased already my book last year. I believe it is the version 5, and now the book has got changed, all the material. I haven't updated my book online because I was thinking that I have to go and pick all the questions, like, you know, the 200 review questions, and I'm not sure if there is a change in those mock exam questions or not.
Okay, Halima, so you bought the 5th edition, it means you bought the Arabic edition. Of course, for those of you also who are new to PRC, we have PRC in Arabic, in French, and sorry, in Arabic, Japanese, and English. So the 3 editions. Okay, so for the Arabic is still valid. The 5th edition is still valid until August. In August, there will be the updates, and for any edition, all the updates will be posted on your online account. You don't have to repurchase the material. As long as you have an online active account with PRC, you will get all the free updates for free on your account.
But my question is that for the mock exam question, is there any huge difference between the edition 5 and
no. We've added just a few more questions, but for the 6th edition, it's not yet out there. So the questions are not yet released. But for the English 11th edition, yes, there are some new questions and new topics on the mock exam and on the online platform.
How I should know that which version I purchased? Is it English edition or Arabic edition?
If you said you have the 5th edition, the 5th edition is the Arabic edition. Because we are in, unless you're talking about the 5th edition English, which is approximately 10 years old now. In English, we are in the 11th edition. In Arabic, we are in the 5th edition.
Well, I actually, when I registered, they suggest me this book. It was last year.
Okay, so last year you bought the Arabic books, and the Arabic books are still valid because the exam in Arabic will only change in August.
It's not Arabic. It is in English. I'm in Canada. I'm not Arabic. Only my name is Arabic, but I'm not Arab.
Okay, so you bought our books, 5th edition, PRC?
Yeah. It is the CIA exam, like the full. I got the full package.
Okay, Halima, can you send a photo of the books to? I'll email you the. I'll put. Okay, you know what? I'll put the email for customer service, and you can communicate with. Okay, so I sent you all guys the contact@powersresources.com. Please send all your questions there, and you will be able to answer that question for you. Okay.
Okay, but I have actually one more question.
Sure.
I know that the mock exam questions are available for Willie's website too. What would be the huge difference between the one that is available in the IIA and in Willie's website? Will that gonna be the content
All of
the same?
us, all of us and our colleagues in the industry are the bulk source of questions are previous exam questions from the IIA released exams. So, and then each publisher will have some additional questions. I know in our case, we have 20 to 30% of our questions are publisher questions. These are the ones that will be different from other providers. Otherwise, 70 or 80% of the material is there. Now, if you've already purchased somebody else's material, I don't recommend, I would like you to sell you our material, but if we believe they'll all get you there. And as I said, if you're not happy with the material you purchased, you can always choose the option switch on our website, and you'll be able to get our material for $100, I believe, for all 3 parts.
Okay.
Can I give the floor to others, and then you can have questions? You can add more questions later on. Atiq, go ahead.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Yes.
I have one question regarding the CIA exam. What I felt from the CIA exam, it's more toward logical than the straightforward. I mean, it's not like comparing the apple with oranges. So it's more kind of the logical exam. So this means that we need to understand all the concepts which are related to the CIA exam before, giving the actual exam.
So, sir, so if I understood your question correctly, you were asking me that are they different from the CPA, and should you focus on the questions of the CIA, right?
No. Actually, my question is that is the CIA exam is not a straightforward. Okay, it's
yes.
Some sort of
it's cases. It puts you in it's a lot of case studies. What would you do in this case, or what's the best option to do in this case? Yes, true.
Yeah, it's more toward the real-time examples, and they will put us on that scenario, and what will be our opinion and what will be the case. So I think that maybe it's more toward the logical than the straightforward, isn't it?
Yes, it's more logical than straightforward. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, back. You said, Ikram, you said when CIA virtual classrooms to start for Canadians, they will all start together. It's going to be on a Saturday, just like this, almost around the same time, and they will start for it's an international course. They will start in March. Mohammed, IT security management is also included in part 3 of CIA. Yes, it is. Mariam, another question in French. I'm going to leave it for Mandy. She'll answer it. Is your material similar to Becker Convisor in terms of passkeys? Okay, I happen to know the Becker material. We do have a similar approach. I would not say the same. Becker has the CPA material. We're talking here about the CIA material. Passkeys, yes, we do have. They're different. They're different questions. Mohammed Abdo, I'm preparing for the CIA exam. Is there any advices? In fact, the advice is all that we've spoke about throughout this session. Mohammed Iqtidar, you said still we can sit in the exam with the old syllabus. You can only, the English no more. You have to sit with the new syllabus. For the Arabic, it will be until August. Okay, Robin, is there any discounts on PRC books and trainings for questionnaires for student members? Yes, we do have a discount for students. So Robin, do communicate with customer service, and they'll give you the promo code for your particular case. How can I get a virtual classroom option only? How to register? Can we get exam dates for 2019? Okay, so back, we will send that, how to get the virtual classrooms. It is on our website, but also my colleagues in customer service will send you the information offline, or once we do that. You can visit our website, and it's there on our website. Exam dates for 2019, Halima, the exams are on demand. So there is no individual, you don't, you set your exam date based on the availability of testing windows and availability in the testing center that you are sitting for. Back, would I be notified for them a few days before to register and get ready? We will send you this information today or tomorrow max back. So Halima, you had the question. You can go ahead and ask it.
No, my question was actually the same. The exam for example, for Montreal location, so there is no exam actually.
No, there
Free.
is no set date. No,
Okay, so I have to register for.
you
I have to.
can set your own date. You find a register and you find your own date.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Mohammed Abdu, I've unmuted you. You can go ahead and ask your question. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the changes now, and we will stay on for questions if you still have more questions. Now, as some of you may have known, or as some of you know, there were changes in the exam syllabus. And what's the new syllabus and what changed? We're going to talk about these changes now. So the changes every 3, 4 years, 5 years, each of these professional qualifications, the CIA being one of them, they do change the exam. Now, of course, these changes, what happens usually, they consolidate all the body of knowledge together. They eliminate parts of it, which is no longer relevant for a CIA practitioner. They add new topics. For example, big data has been added and data analysis has been added to the CIA recently, and they redivide it to 3, 4 parts, whatever. So this is the primary change that took place for 2019 exam. They combined the old body of knowledge and they added a little bit, no more than 5%. They removed a little bit, also no more than 5 or 10%, and they redivided it. Now, if you studied all 3 parts on the previous edition of the exam, you don't have to restudy or purchase material. All you have to do is get the updates for the additional 5%, and you'll be ready to sit for the exam on the new version. Now, so you don't have to worry about these changes. Now, for what changed? The titles changed. They used to be called Internal Audit Basics. Now it's called Essentials of Internal Auditing. They used to and the outline. Now the previous outline for before 2019, mandatory guidance 35 to 45%, internal control risk was 25 to 35, conducting internal audit engagements, audit tools and techniques 25 to 35. Now the mandatory guidance, which used to be 35 to 45, used to include these 4 parts, so these have not changed. So points 1, 2, 3, and 4 used to be included in under mandatory guidance. They just divided them. Now, internal control risk used to be 25 to 35%. What they did is they added to it governance from part 3. So now it's governance, risk management, and control 35%. And fraud risks used to be covered in part 2. Now they cover it in part 1. And the conducting internal audit engagements, audit tools and techniques, this has been removed from the old part 1 and now it's part of the new part 2. Part 2 changes. It used to be called the internal audit practice. Now it's called practice of internal auditing. And this was the old outline, managing the internal audit function, managing individual engagements, fraud risks and controls. Now this, as we said, has been changed to part 1. And the third domain of part 1 now is in part 2. So now this is the new outline, managing the internal audit activity, planning the engagement, performing the engagement, and communicating engagement results and monitoring. So with the exception of planning the engagement, all the other topics were originally in part 2 and they brought in planning from part 1. Now, part 3, the changes are as follows. It used to be called internal audit knowledge elements. Now it's called business knowledge for internal auditing. And the topics are as follows. It used to be governance, business ethics. This has moved to, well, the governance moved to part 1. Business ethics, along with other topics, has been combined in a new title called business acumen. Risk management is now also part of part 1. Organizational structure, business processes, and risks. Now it's part of the business acumen. Communication is part of the business acumen. Management leadership principles is part of the business acumen. IT business continuity has been divided to 2 separate sections. One is information security and one is information technology. So this has been broken down. Financial management is still there at 20%. Global business environments has been combined with the business acumen at 35%. And this is the effective dates. Of course, everything up to December 31st would be under, it's no longer there. The new exam took place starting January. Languages for non-English will start rolling out in March or April. And towards the end of 2019, all languages will have converted to the new edition. Melissa, did I answer your question? I unmuted you, Melissa. Did I answer your question? Okay, great. Yes. So when do the exam results arrive, Ramnoj? Okay, I'll answer that next. When do the exam results arrive? As soon as you do the exam, you click on End Exam, you get your scores online. So you get the scores immediately online. Do you suggest applying for the CPA in case I failed achieving CIA for many attempts, even for an internal auditor? I do not recommend that you do change, even if you failed multiple times. Just don't get. If you want, you can communicate. I'll do this. I'll give you my email here, and you can all either communicate with me or with the customer service, and we'll be able to better assist you with the answering individual questions about individual cases. I would definitely not recommend that you give up on it. I'm sure you'll be able to do it. Let's see what are the reasons. I did send my email on the public chat. I hope you all received it. You know what? I'll send it again. Okay. Now, okay, I believe I answered all the questions on the chat. Mohammed, you have a question? I've unmuted you. You can go ahead and ask your question. You're muted from your end. Mariam, you also had a French question. You can go ahead and ask it for Mandy. Go ahead, Mandy.
Oui, bonjour Mariam. Y avait-tu une autre question?
Oui, j'avais posé des questions là parce que je me suis dit, j'ai été auditrice avant dans une banque dans mon pays.
OK.
Et là, actuellement, je suis résidente permanente à Gatineau, au Canada.
OK.
Et je suis vraiment intéressée par ces cours-là. Donc, j'aimerais savoir, est-ce que j'ai droit d'être inscrite ou pas?
Tu veux dire pour l'examen? Parce qu'il y a comme deux
pour
phases.
Les cours. Pour les cours, même pour commencer, oui. Parce que est-ce que j'ai droit ou pas? Parce que la dernière fois, j'ai posé la question de savoir. J'ai dit que j'ai une licence en technique comptable, j'ai un BTS en banque.
OK.
J'ai fait un master et mes diplômes sont en cours d'évaluation au niveau du ministère de Québec.
Ouais, ça devrait être correct. Au moins, si tu as une baccalauréat en quelque chose, ça prend ça comme minimum. Et puis, pour vous enregistrer au cours, je pense que la prochaine cours va commencer en mars le 6 ou le 7 mars, si je ne me trompe pas.
Oui.
Alors, ce qu'on va faire après ça, je vais vous envoyer le feuille d'enregistration pour voir les prix et tout ça et les prochaines étapes.
D'accord. Là, oui, parce que quand je communique en anglais, on me donne pas de réponses satisfaisantes. Donc, si vous pouvez vraiment... J'aimerais bien m'inscrire pour faire les cours, commencer par le nouveau 1 parce que j'ai 6 ans d'expérience et j'aime beaucoup l'audit.
OK,
et j'aime approfondir mes connaissances en audit.
OK, je vais prendre ton adresse email après avec le présentateur et je vais vous communiquer directement.
D'accord, merci beaucoup, madame. Merci. Merci.
Okay, Mohammed, you can go ahead and ask your question. You're muted from your end. Mohammed Abdu, you can go ahead and... Okay. Okay, so now regarding scores, now I am getting some offline questions, and for privacy, I will not disclose names. But for those of you who are asking, if you're scoring or if you're not passing the exam, I would recommend you, as you said, communicate with me privately or directly by email. Send me your results. If you can provide your phone number, and I'll be able to contact you, or to discuss with you on a personal level what you need to do to pass, or how you can do to improve your scores. If you are closer to the 580s, you're very close. You probably just need to do a quick review of the questions and reattempt the exam. You don't need much more. If you're less than that, you will probably need to reread the topics or focus on the areas you're on. When you fail, you get a report that tells you the areas that you need significant improvement, and these are the areas where I'd recommend that you reread them from the book and resolve the questions. Sometimes it might be helpful to change your source. If you read them from one source, maybe reading them from another source, not because the topics change, it's just maybe it's because each source will approach it in a different manner. They all give you the same information, but sometimes it's the approach. So you might also want to read them from somewhere else. Otherwise, you don't give up. I definitely don't give up. So Zia Jing, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. I did give my email multiple times, but I will give it to you again. So how many correct answers make 600? Sometimes it's 68%, sometimes 67%, sometimes it's 70%. Rarely is it more than 71 or 72% to make 600. So Canada also recognizes the CIA. Yes, companies in Canada do recognize the CIA. We do have an internal audit institute here in Canada. We do have chapters of the IIA globally here in Canada. And yes, it is recognized by companies and by the corporate market in Canada. Any other questions? So Halima, Nural, you sent us your email. We will be reviewing all these chats and sending emails as necessary. And we also will be sending you all a coupon, a promo code for attending this. Thanking you for attending this session. You'll get a discount on the live course that will start in March. I have one question for you. And I'm going to go back to that presentation. Now, what's the title of the seminar or the webinar? The title was the 7 pillars, right? And how many pillars did we count? We counted 6. So where is number 7? This is number 7. Stay positive always while studying, during the exam, during your preparation, even after you fail. If, God forbid, you failed, always stay positive. No matter what happens, staying positive is the best approach to pass the CIA exam. Thank you very much for attending this seminar. As we said, you can always contact us personally or customer service. You can email us. I will be sticking around to answer your questions if you still have any. For those of you who would like to leave or exit the webinar, you're welcome to do so. Isam, I'd like to, are you still with us? You can talk about your experience. Isam started introducing, he did pass the part 1 of the exam. So I'm going to unmute Isam. If you're still with us, you can share your experience.
Yeah, Mr. Waddah, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. For my experience, as I said, I depend on material of BRC. And for questions, to be honest, it was for BRC and Gleim Hook and another school.
How much difference did you find between the questions?
How much?
How much, like, was there significant differences in the questions?
like you said, Mr. Waddah, it was يعني around 20 to 30%. I think it's يعني there is difference, to be honest. It's
But
not only 5 or 10%, but
Mhm.
يعني most of ideas it was
The same.
يعني same, yeah.
Mhm.
But also يعني the strategy you speak before, we depend on it, we follow it, as most of questions يعني it was for my experience first, maybe not first 10 questions it was tall and somehow complicated. For part one it was 20 or 25 questions. It was the first one, and it was tall, and somehow you should read and concentrate to answer. So I follow your strategy. Next. I didn't do any red flag. Then come again. يعني it was around 3 or 4 times for me. And alhamdulillah يعني when they
You
told
passed.
me pass يعني
Congratulations.
alhamdulillah.
How much did you get?
They didn't mention it,
They don't
only
mention.
pass.
That's right. That's right. They don't
Yeah,
mention us. Yeah.
it was pass يعني alhamdulillah.
You passed part one in English or Arabic? I have a question. Did you pass part one in English or Arabic?
No, it was English.
Okay.
And inshallah part 2 maybe it will be in March, inshallah. So
Okay.
pray for us,
All
inshallah.
the best.
Like,
All the best.
thank
Maria,
you very much.
I'm going to
Highly
unmute you if
appreciate it.
you'd like to ask your questions in French.
Oui,
Bonjour,
j'ai
Mary.
pas une... Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour.
C'est pas une question, mais j'apprécie beaucoup la façon dont il avait détaillé le contenu des différents examens à passer. C'est ça, je trouve très intéressant sa façon de détailler. Et j'ai beaucoup apprécié, sinon c'est pas une question en tant que telle.
Parfait, je vais
Il a été vraiment, il a bien détaillé le contenu des 3 niveaux. J'étais vraiment très contente.
Super. Fait que je vais vous envoyer l'information. Puis avec mon information de contact aussi pour un follow-up.
D'accord, merci beaucoup, c'est gentil.
Merci. Wada, just to translate, she said that you explained it very well, how you laid out the 3 different exams and what's included, and she really appreciates the time you took today.
Not at all. It's our duty. You good luck and all the best in passing the CIA.
Bonne chance à tout le monde.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, so I guess we have no more questions left. I will, as I said, we will be sending you some information by email, and we thank you again for attending our webinar. All the best, and as we're all here at PRC to help you pass your CIA and become CIAs in the near future. So I do have one more question, which is easy to pass. They're the same parts. It depends on the language. The language doesn't matter. They only translate. Now, sometimes if you're able to read the original language, the English, because all questions are originally written in English, I recommend you study from the English edition and take the English exam. Yes, Hashim, this webinar is recorded. It will be posted on our channel shortly. Allow it a few days to be edited and then to be posted. Isam, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Waddah. Only one small point. As you said, alhamdulillah, yani I studied part 1 and part 2 same, both. And
together.
Together. And the exam, it was like you mentioned before, Mr. Waddah, that yani it was very overlapping. So I advise, like you said, that you yani all colleagues, I advise them to study both parts, inshallah.
Great. Thank you very much, Isam. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And all the best. Join us for our future webinars, and hopefully we'll see you in our live course starting March. All the best, and we'll see you soon.